It's not as sexy as California or Texas or even Florida whenever we start talking about states that are, will they, won't they, what's going on here. But listen, a state is a state is a state. We like to be able to talk about maybe bringing this to new bettors out there. So, Adam, what's going on in Missouri?
We have the final official go-ahead from the Missouri Secretary of State's office that sports betting is going to be on the ballot in Missouri this year. In November 2024, voters will have the opportunity to legalize online sports betting in Missouri. This ends years of a stalemate at the legislature that was caused by Senator Denny Hoskins, who was basically obstructing everything to try to get VLTs, video lottery terminals, these slot-like products that go in a lot of gas stations, convenience stores, and other places along the road, included in any sports betting legislation. And finally, you had a coalition of pro sports teams led by the St. Louis Cardinals, as well as FanDuel and DraftKings, who put more than $6 million into a signature gathering effort to get it on the ballot. We find out this week that they were successful in gathering enough signatures, and there will be the opportunity to vote on this in November. Now, we have a page at Legal Sports Report where we're tracking polling in Missouri, and I would say it's a toss-up right now as to whether this passes. We're not looking at anything like California, where the polling was consistently saying that this had no chance of getting through. I do believe it's a true toss-up in Missouri, and it's important to remember that this is going on the ballot at a time when president will also be on the ballot, which means you're going to get the maximum turnout for this particular issue. And because you're going to get maximum turnout, do start to wonder how accurate the polling really is, because you don't know who's going to come out in a presidential year. So a lot to keep track of in Missouri, but there will be the opportunity for at least one state to choose to legalize sports betting this year.
Yeah, we're trying to get two in there, and that's where we get with Nebraska here. Not to the state, not to the level of Missouri quite yet, where it is definitely going to be on the ballot. But we might, right? There's hope out there.
It takes me back to doing a work trip out to old Lincoln, Nebraska, years ago, and walking through the Capitol in Nebraska and seeing the names of some folks who ended up becoming some pretty important politicians on the national stage, and also noticing that it's a one-house legislature. It is, as they say, unicameral. Ooh. And the unicameral legislature is in special session right now, as requested by Governor Jim Pillen, with the hope of providing property tax relief to folks in the state. One of the ways that they would like to be able to provide an offset is by considering legalizing online sports betting. There already is in-person sports betting in Nebraska. Now, as we record this on Thursday, this is a live discussion right now in the legislature. We are tracking what's going on. It did pass through a committee earlier in the legislature so that it has the potential to be considered on the floor. And like we talked about, unicameral, which means it only has to get to one floor and pass one floor in order to make it to the ballot. Now, here's the key thing that our Pat Evans did the research on. You can read more about it at legalsportsreport.com. If 3/5 of the legislature chooses to approve sports betting for a ballot vote, and legislators did change this from approving it to putting it to a vote of the people. If 3/5 approve, this would go on the 2026 ballot. You would need 4/5 of the legislature approving it right now for it to make it to the 2024 ballot. It's a matter of timing and the rules in Nebraska to essentially say, if you want this to go on the ballot so quickly, you need 80% of the legislature to say this is something that needs to go in front of people right now. You still need 60% just to get in front of people by 2026. So not impossible, I think, to get the 3/5. 4/5 could be a pretty heavy lift. That special session has been ongoing for more than a week in Nebraska. And let me tell you, from having been through a number of this type of special session event in my lifetime, this is when deals start to get done. When people are tired of being away from their family at a time they didn't have to plan to be in a special session, you just want to get something passed so that you can get out of there. Now, I would still say it's an underdog for sports betting to be included in Nebraska during this special session, but that doesn't mean it's dead, because remember that Pillen, the governor, had already said he was going to put forward a priority bill in the coming legislature in 2025 to legalize sports betting online in Nebraska. So there is a chance, if it doesn't happen in this special session, that it just gets considered a few months from now.
And Adam, a good time for us to take a little aside here. If you guys are putting together your bucket list trips, for sports and things like that, one of the ones that doesn't get brought up enough is going to the College World Series. One of the best times I had in a lot of these little sports bucket list trips. You go, everybody's just super hyped to be there. Obviously, if a fan base is following their baseball team, it is a very, very loyal fan base, right? Because it's typically, sure, you see a bunch of fans on road games for football, and certainly if your team makes the tournament or something like that, you might get some people traveling for the basketball side of things. But man, in baseball, you get the loyals of the loyal because, it's just not the most popular collegiate sport or something. So you go, and that whole experience, buying the package, you end up going to games of teams of other schools and stuff just because of the experience and all of the stuff that's going on there and all the tailgating, and everybody's friendly. It's kind of like not that same vibe you get from football whenever you go to a road game where people kind of like maybe might be nice or maybe might want to spit on you. You don't really know. But yeah, the college baseball World Series up there in Omaha is amazing.
Did you have a rooting interest, Matt?
Yeah, a little bit of a rooting interest when I went, for sure.
You might be a fan or an alum or a former of a pretty successful college baseball team.
But that being said, it is, like I said, it's the atmosphere is so different because you go to road football games and it's kind of like, you find some fans who are not so polite, that aren't welcoming to you to come over and like, oh, hey, would you like to have a beer? Or do you want to try this food that we made or something? Yeah, there are places you don't get that in the SEC for sure. But man, you head up to Omaha for College World Series. It's a really, really good time.
Well, as a Yankees fan, I have a system at this point of how I do things when I go on the road, especially if I'm going to a stadium I haven't been to before. Yeah. Usually I'm going for the whole 3-game series. Mm-hmm. Night 1, I go unmarked because I want to get a gauge of how crazy these fans really are. And if it's not fights in the stands or getting something thrown at me, then night 2, the jerseys can start to come out and, we can really go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because, again, we're too old. We have too many light bulb brightnesses to try to pick out we don't need to be getting in fights and, in the stands and stuff.
Buddy, you want to talk about a bright idea? Yo, ho, ho, ho.
Hey, I see what you did there.